Imagine waking up and realizing the sound of civilization is gone. No bargaining, no church chatter, no children arguing over bread, just silence. The kind of silence that feels like the world paused and then forgot to press play again. A town is not just buildings, it's breath, it's routine, it's gossip. And now, the breath is missing. What happened here wasn't just a tragedy. It was a system failure. Civilization-level mortality. Entire towns didn't just lose people, they lost memory. Welcome to the Black Death. Structure setup, the 5 threads. To go deep without getting lost, we're going to follow 5 threads. Think of it like holding a lantern line inside a cave. Thread 1, the microbe, what it did to bodies. Thread 2, the network, how trade routes became blood routes. Thread 3, the mind, fear, faith, and survival stories. Thread 4, the blame, how terror turns into violence. And thread 5, the adaptation, how societies rebuilt and never fully went back. Every time we dive deep, we come back to these threads. Deal? Good, because this story goes deep. Thread 1, the microbe, the body's betrayal. The Black Death is widely linked to plague caused by Yersinia pestis, often transmitted by fleas that fed on infected rodents, then jumped to humans when their usual hosts died. And here's where it gets personal. One classic form is bubonic plague. Fever, chills, weakness, and then the mark. Swollen, painful lymph nodes called buboes. They could appear in the groin, the armpit, the neck, your body's security checkpoints turning into burning alarms. It's like your immune system filed an incident report and then set the report on fire. Short beat. Sometimes the infection spreads into the bloodstream, or worse, into the lungs. And when it hits the lungs, it becomes faster, more contagious, far more lethal. Coughing, chest pain, bloody sputum, the nightmare version of shared air. Bridge. But disease alone doesn't create catastrophe. For catastrophe, you need movement, you need connection, you need a network. Thread 2, the network, when commerce becomes a delivery system. This isn't just a disease story. It's an infrastructure story. Europe in the 1300s was stitched together by trade, ports, caravans, markets, and the plague moved like a master thief, not by kicking doors down, but by walking through the doors everyone held open for business. Historians commonly trace its arrival in Europe to Mediterranean ports in 1347. From there, it spread inland, rapidly. The death toll, civilization scale. A widely cited estimate, about 25 million deaths in Europe between 1347 and 1351, and some regions lost even more. Quiet beat. 25 million is not a statistic. It's fields without farmers, churches without choirs, cities where the living cannot bury the dead fast enough. Shock recap bridge. So far, the microbe, a brutal infection. The network, trade routes turned transmission routes. Now we move to the human core, because when reality becomes unbearable, humans do what we always do. We explain, we blame, we pray, we panic, we adapt. Thread 3, the mind. Fear, faith, and end-of-world logic. Medieval Europe didn't have germ theory. They had meaning. When neighbors died in days, sometimes hours, people didn't think, ah, yes, a bacterium vectored by fleas. They thought, God is angry, the air is cursed, the world is ending. And that isn't stupidity. That's the human brain doing emergency storytelling just to survive terror. Gentle shift. Some turned to intense public penance. Flagellant movements marched from town to town, whipping themselves, trying to pay for collective sin. And eventually, authority pushed back, because religious frenzy can become a parallel government. In 1349, Pope Clement VI formally condemned these movements. Nothing says stable society like traveling crowds publicly whipping themselves and the Pope saying, please stop. Thread 4. The blame. When terror needs a target. When death feels random, people hunt for patterns. And when patterns don't exist, they manufacture targets. Across parts of Europe, Jewish communities were scapegoated, accused of poisoning wells, accused of spreading disease. The result? Persecutions, violence, massacres. Let's call it what it is. Not panic, not confusion, moral collapse under pressure. Because when humans face chaos, they don't just fear death, they fear meaninglessness. And sometimes they will commit evil just to make the chaos feel explainable. 5. Medicine's limits, when your best tool is vibes. So what did medicine do? Medieval medical thinking focused on balancing humors and avoiding bad air. Treatments included bloodletting, herbal aromas, ritual balance, all aimed at restoring harmony, not fighting a pathogen. If you're hoping for a miracle cure, imagine calling an electrician because your house is on fire, and he shows up to rebalance your feng shui. They weren't fools. They used the best model they had, but the model was wrong, so the solutions couldn't land. And one myth to correct. The famous beaked plague doctor mask, that's mostly from the 17th century, long after the Black Death. History just gave it retroactive branding. Adaptation. What survived changed. Now here's the part people forget. The Black Death didn't just kill people, it rearranged power. When huge portions of the workforce vanish, labor becomes valuable. Wages rise in some places, old feudal structures strain. The assumption that peasants are endless cracks. Psychologically, too, some became more religious, some became disillusioned. Some looked at institutions, church, state, medicine, and saw limits they could never unsee again. The world after the Black Death wasn't just the same world minus people. It was a new operating system. Threads tie together. Let's pull our lantern line tight. The microbe, bodies overwhelmed. The network, trade becomes transmission. The mind, fear demands meaning. The blame, terror turns violent. And the adaptation, society rewires itself. That's the Black Death, not just a disease, a stress test of civilization. Final question. The unsettling part isn't that a plague happened, it's what it reveals. When the world breaks, humans do three things. We search for meaning, we search for blame, we search for a way forward. And the difference between a society that survives with dignity and one that survives with scars for centuries is what it chooses in those three moments. If you were there, watching your world vanish, what story would you tell yourself, and who would pay the price for it? Outro CTA. If you want the next episode, we can follow the second wave, how plague kept returning for centuries, and how Europe slowly built the foundations of public health out of terror and trial. If you made it this far, comment one word, threads, and tell me which shocked you most: microbe, network, mind, blame, or adaptation. I'll see you in the next story.